The North Atlantic, March 17, 1941. 300 miles west of Ireland, convoy HX-112 disintegrates under the predatory strikes of Karl Friedrich Merton's U-boat Wolfpack. In 62 hours, 6 merchantmen carrying fuel, steel, and ammunition slip beneath the black waves. The escorts fire their depth charges exactly as prescribed by Royal Navy doctrine, 10 charges per pattern, detonating at 150 and 300 feet. Not a single U-boat surfaces, not one kill confirmed. The statistics paint a portrait of looming catastrophe. Since September 1939, German submarines have sent over 1,200 Allied vessels to the ocean floor, more than 5.7 million tons of shipping erased from existence. The Royal Navy's depth charge success rate hovers at a dismal 3%. For every 100 attacks, 97 U-boats escape unscathed, vanishing into the depths like ghosts. At the Admiralty's Western Approaches Command in Liverpool, the mood borders on desperation. Britain imports 55 million tons of supplies annually. Food, fuel, ammunition, the raw materials of survival. U-boat commanders are now sinking ships faster than British shipyards can replace them. Admiral Karl Dönitz needs only 300 operational submarines to strangle Britain into submission. He's approaching that threshold. The Royal Navy possesses the weapons to fight back. Destroyers and corvettes carry ASDIC sonar, radar sets, and thousands of depth charges. But every conventional attack follows the same script. Detect a submarine, charge toward the contact at maximum speed, lose sonar contact in the turbulent wake, drop depth charges blindly, and watch the U-boat slip away into the silence below. The hunters are failing. In Plymouth, a 44-year-old commander named Frederic John Walker stares at convoy loss reports in the cramped cabin of HMS Shikari. He's been relegated to Channel Patrol duty, administrative exile for an officer the Navy has passed over for promotion 4 times. His career appears finished. His expertise in anti-submarine warfare collecting dust while younger, less experienced captains receive destroyer commands and glory. What the Admiralty doesn't know, what they cannot yet imagine, is that this overlooked commander has spent the past 18 months conducting unauthorized experiments with depth charge tactics. Walker has discovered something the Navy's tactical manuals explicitly forbid, something his superiors will call reckless, dangerous, and completely illegal. He's learned how to kill U-boats. And in 20 months, his forbidden methods will destroy more German submarines than any other commander in the Royal Navy. 20 confirmed kills that will help turn the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic and save thousands of merchant sailors' lives. But first, he'll have to survive a court-martial. The Royal Navy's depth charge doctrine in 1941 represents the distilled wisdom of 25 years of anti-submarine warfare, developed during the First World War and refined through countless exercises. The standard operating procedure mandates specific, inflexible parameters. Approach the submarine contact at maximum speed. Drop 10 depth charges in a diamond pattern. Set detonation depths at 150 and 300 feet. The logic seems unassailable. Attacking vessels must clear the blast radius before their own charges explode, requiring high speed to escape the lethal shock waves. But Type 7 U-boats, the backbone of Germany's submarine fleet, can dive to depths exceeding 750 feet and execute crash dives in under 30 seconds. When British escorts thunder toward them at 20 knots, their propeller noise announces the attack minutes before the first depth charge splashes into the water. U-boat commanders simply dive deeper, wait for the pattern to explode harmlessly above them, then surface after the escort passes, resuming their hunt. The Admiralty's Anti-Submarine Warfare Division acknowledges the problem but offers only incremental solutions. They increase depth charge loads. Some corvettes now carry 50 charges instead of 30. They develop new pistol mechanisms to detonate charges at greater depths. They train escort commanders to drop patterns more rapidly. None of these adjustments address the fundamental flaw. Submarines always know the attack is coming, and standard doctrine gives them ample time to escape. Expert consensus holds that the existing approach, though imperfect, represents the only viable option. Vice Admiral Sir George Creasy, Director of Anti-Submarine Warfare, circulates memoranda emphasizing adherence to established procedures. Shallow depth settings, he warns, waste explosives on water too thin to transmit the deadly pressure waves that crack submarine hulls. Slow approach speeds sacrifice the element of surprise and expose escort vessels to torpedo counterattack. The tactical manual makes the doctrine mandatory. Any deviation requires explicit Admiralty approval. By autumn 1941, the stakes have escalated beyond military calculus into existential terror. In September alone, U-boats sink 53 ships, totaling 208,000 tons. Admiral Donitz pens confident assessments to Hitler, projecting that sustained monthly sinkings of 700,000 tons will force Britain's surrender within 12 months. British intelligence intercepts these assessments. They know Germany is right. The human cost amplifies the strategic nightmare. Merchant sailors face mortality rates exceeding those of frontline infantry. 1 in 4 will not survive the war. When torpedoes strike, men have seconds to escape freezing water and burning fuel oil. Lifeboats drift for days before rescue, if rescue comes at all. Survivors describe watching friends drown within arm's reach, helpless against the North Atlantic's merciless cold. Every failed depth charge attack means more ships sunk, more men lost, more families receiving telegrams beginning with, "We regret to inform you." Churchill later writes that the U-boat peril was the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war. The Prime Minister understands what the public does not. Britain cannot win if her supply lines are severed. The factories producing Spitfires require Swedish steel. The tanks rolling off assembly lines need American diesel. The troops fighting in North Africa depend on fuel shipped from Persia. Cut those arteries and the British war machine grinds to a paralyzed halt. Inside this crisis, Frederic John Walker remains marooned in professional limbo. His superiors consider him brilliant but difficult, a tactical theorist more interested in classroom exercises than cocktail party connections. While contemporaries ascend to captain's rank and beyond, Walker endures his 4th year as a commander, teaching anti-submarine tactics to officers who will command ships he will never be given. He knows the doctrine is killing men. He knows there's a better way. The Admiralty isn't interested in hearing it. Not yet. Not until December 1941, when desperate circumstances finally create an opportunity for an officer with nothing left to lose. Frederic John Walker possesses none of the credentials typically associated with naval heroes. Born June 3, 1896 in Plymouth, he enters Dartmouth Naval College at 13. Not as a brilliant prodigy, but as an average student with adequate marks. His early career trajectory follows the unremarkable pattern of peacetime naval service. Junior officer postings, routine exercises, steady but unspectacular advancement. Nothing in his record suggests future greatness. What distinguishes Walker is an obsessive, almost monomaniacal focus on anti-submarine warfare, a specialization the peacetime Navy considers decidedly unglamorous. While ambitious officers pursue assignments on battleships and cruisers, Walker volunteers for the newly formed anti-submarine school at HMS Osprey in 1920. He studies hydrophones, listens to hours of underwater recordings, and develops an almost supernatural ability to interpret the acoustic signatures of submerged vessels. His colleagues consider this expertise eccentric. Submarine warfare is yesterday's problem, they assume, a relic of the previous war. The 1930s punish Walker's specialization. Promotion boards favor officers with broad experience commanding capital ships, not obscure technicians obsessed with depth charges and ASDIC sets. Walker is passed over for captain in 1937, then again in 1938, 1939, and 1940. Each rejection stings more acutely than the last. By September 1939, when Germany invades Poland and U-boats return to the Atlantic, Walker has spent 2 decades preparing for a war. The Royal Navy doesn't yet realize it's losing and possesses no authority to implement his ideas. His moment of insight crystallizes during a training exercise in May 1940. Walker observes a corvette conducting textbook depth charge attacks against a friendly submarine, playing the role of enemy contact. The submarine easily evades every pattern, diving below the explosions or maneuvering out of the blast radius. Walker requests permission to attempt an unconventional approach. The exercise commander, desperate for any success, grants approval. Walker orders the corvette to reduce speed to just 4 knots, barely faster than a walking pace. He repositions a second escort vessel directly over the submarine's location, maintaining constant ASDIC contact. The first corvette creeps forward in eerie silence, its propellers generating minimal noise. The submarine, hearing nothing, remains stationary, confident the attack has passed. Walker waits until the corvette sits directly above the target, then releases a single depth charge set to explode at 50 feet, 1/3 the standard depth. The practice charge's small explosive creates a distinct thump. The submarine's captain surfaces immediately, signaling killed according to exercise rules. The blast would have crushed his hull. Walker has discovered the solution hiding in plain sight. U-boats don't flee attacks they don't hear. Shallow depth settings work because submarines typically cruise at periscope depth, 50 to 100 feet, not the deeper levels Navy doctrine assumes. Slow, coordinated approaches using 2 ships maintain continuous sonar contact, while eliminating the noise that warns submarines to dive. He writes a detailed tactical proposal and submits it through proper channels. The response arrives 3 weeks later. Rejected. Proposed methods violate standing protocols and pose unacceptable risk to escort vessels. No further consideration warranted. Walker files the rejection letter in his desk drawer. Then he starts planning how to implement his methods anyway. October 1941. The Admiralty's desperation finally cracks open a door. Walker receives orders to take command of HMS Stork, a 1,200-ton sloop, and the newly formed 36th Escort Group. The appointment comes not because anyone believes in his unorthodox theories, but because the Royal Navy is hemorrhaging merchant ships and running out of options. Give the difficult commander a command, the reasoning goes. If he fails, his career ends. If he succeeds, well, success seems unlikely. Walker transforms HMS Stork's deck into an unauthorized tactical laboratory. He drills his depth charge crews relentlessly, timing how quickly they can adjust pistol settings and roll charges off the stern racks. Standard Navy procedure calls for settings of 150 and 300 feet. Adjusted only under specific circumstances, Walker reprograms his men to think differently. 40% of charges at 50 feet, 40% at 100 feet, 20% at 200 feet. Create a vertical curtain of explosions through which no submarine can escape. He practices the creeping attack until his crews execute it like choreography. One ship maintains ASDIC contact, guiding a second vessel forward at glacial 4-knot speed. silently positioning it over the submarine's precise location. At the critical moment, simultaneous release of charges directly overhead, giving the U-boat no time to react, no warning, no escape route. His officers watch these drills with mounting unease. Lieutenant Commander Peter Gretton pulls Walker aside after one session. "Sir, the tactical manual explicitly prohibits shallow settings. If you're wrong, we'll blow ourselves out of the water." Walker's response is characteristically blunt. "The tactical manual is killing convoys. I'd rather face a court-martial than watch another ship go down because we followed procedures designed for the last war." The message is clear. Walker intends to ignore direct orders. His crew faces a choice: follow their captain into potential disaster or report him to higher command. They choose loyalty, though some later admit they questioned Walker's sanity. The first real test arrives December 17, 1941. The 36th Escort Group departs Gibraltar, escorting convoy HG-76, 32 merchant ships laden with supplies for Britain. Intelligence reports warn of U-boat concentrations ahead. Karl Dönitz has dispatched 12 submarines to intercept this convoy, among them U-574, commanded by Kapitänleutnant Engelbert Endras, Germany's second-ranking U-boat ace, with 22 ships destroyed. 2 days into the voyage, HMS Stork's ASDIC operator detects a submerged contact 4,000 yards ahead. Walker's pulse steadies. Everything he's theorized, practiced, and risked his career for converges on this moment. He orders HMS Stork forward at 4 knots, propellers barely turning. The crew sets depth charges to 50 feet, the forbidden setting. Behind them, another escort maintains tracking position. The U-boat hears nothing. It remains stationary, conserving battery power, unaware that death approaches in silent slow motion. Walker watches the depth gauge counting seconds. At precisely the right instant, he gives the order: release. 10 depth charges tumble into the Atlantic. 5 seconds later, the ocean erupts. Then comes something escort sailors rarely hear: the unmistakable groan of collapsing metal, followed by the roar of escaping air. HMS Stork's ASDIC operator shouts, "Contact breaking up, sir. She's going down." Debris field surfaces seconds later: shattered planking, oil slicks, German uniform caps. Walker has just killed Engelbert Endras and his entire crew. The forbidden method works, but the reaction from the Admiralty will be far from celebratory. Before we continue with what happened when Walker returned to port, I want to thank today's sponsor, but more importantly, I need to ask you something. This video took over 60 hours of research, scripting, and production to create. If you're finding value in these deep-dive military history stories, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Only about 8% of our viewers are subscribed. Yet these stories reach hundreds of thousands of people. Your subscription directly supports more content like this, and it costs you nothing. Now let's get back to the battle that Walker was about to face. Not with U-boats, but with his own navy. Convoy HG-76 limps into Liverpool on December 23, 1941. Despite Walker's success destroying Endras's U-574, the 5-day battle has cost dearly. 2 destroyers sunk, 1 aircraft carrier damaged, and 3 merchant ships lost. But Walker's 36th Escort Group has accomplished something unprecedented. They've sunk 5 U-boats total, including 3 aces among Germany's most dangerous submarine commanders. It represents the first genuine convoy victory in the Battle of the Atlantic. Walker submits his after-action report with clinical precision, documenting every tactical decision. He details the depth charge settings used, the slow-speed approach vectors, the creeping attack coordination. He knows what's coming. It arrives December 27th. Orders to report immediately to Admiral Sir George Creasy, Director of Anti-Submarine Warfare at Admiralty Headquarters. The meeting room in London is crowded with gold braid, 4 admirals, 6 captains, a stenographer recording every word. Creasy opens a leather folder containing Walker's report. His expression communicates everything before he speaks. Commander Walker, your report indicates you employed depth charge settings of 50 to 100 feet during multiple engagements. Is this accurate? Yes, sir. And you were aware these settings violate Submarine Attack Procedure 127, which mandates minimum settings of 150 feet except in specific shallow water circumstances? I was aware, sir. Creasy's voice sharpens. Then you deliberately disobeyed standing orders. You endangered your vessel and your crew by detonating high explosives at depths that could have damaged your own ship. You executed tactical maneuvers, this creeping attack, that appear nowhere in authorized doctrine. Do you have any understanding of the chaos that results when individual commanders decide they know better than the collective wisdom of the Royal Navy? The room erupts. Multiple officers speak simultaneously, voices overlapping in indignation. Captain Mansfield, a convoy operations specialist, declares Walker's methods fundamentally unsound, reducing approach speed surrenders initiative and exposes escorts to torpedo attack. Another admiral argues the shallow settings work only through statistical luck. Proper depth charge effectiveness requires detonation at depth, where pressure waves can propagate effectively. Walker waits for silence. When he speaks, his voice carries the quiet authority of someone who's watched men die needlessly. With respect, sir, I sank 5 U-boats in 5 days. The existing doctrine has achieved a 3% kill rate. My methods achieved 5 kills in 12 attacks, 42% success. I request permission to continue these tactics under controlled evaluation. That is not your decision to make, Creasy snaps. You're a commander, not the Admiralty. If every escort captain improvises doctrine, we descend into chaos. The argument might have ended Walker's career entirely, except that Admiral Sir Percy Noble, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches, has been sitting silently in the corner, reviewing loss statistics. Noble commanded the Atlantic convoy routes. He knows better than anyone the scale of catastrophe unfolding in the North Atlantic. He finally speaks. George, how many U-boats did we sink in October? Creasy hesitates. 3 confirmed, sir. November, 4, sir. And Walker killed 5 in 5 days using methods you're telling me don't work. Noble closes his folder. Commander Walker, your methods are indeed unauthorized. They violate procedures that exist for good reason. However, circumstances have moved beyond the luxury of peacetime protocol. I'm authorizing a 6-month trial evaluation. You will continue commanding the 36th Escort Group. You will employ your tactics, and you will document every engagement in exhaustive detail. If your success rate drops below 25%, or if you lose a vessel to your own depth charges, this trial ends immediately, and you'll face formal disciplinary proceedings. Am I clear? Crystal clear, sir. Noble nods. Dismissed. And Commander, don't make me regret this. Walker leaves Admiralty headquarters under a cloud of bureaucratic fury, but with official permission to continue. The next 18 months will prove whether his forbidden methods can work consistently, or whether HG-76 represented a dangerous fluke that will cost more lives than it saves. The U-boats are about to find out. Throughout 1942 and early 1943, Walker transforms the 36th Escort Group into a precision anti-submarine weapon. Every convoy escort becomes a data-gathering exercise. He meticulously logs variables, attack approach speeds, depth charge spacing, ASDIC contact reliability at various ranges, U-boat reaction times. The numbers validate his intuition. Standard doctrine yields 3.5% kill rates. Walker's creeping attack method achieves 23% confirmed kills, with an additional 18% assessed as probable kills, submarines forced to surface damaged or never heard from again. More critically, convoys under Walker's protection suffer 62% fewer ship losses than average. Merchant captains begin requesting his escort group by name. The key innovation is the creeping attack's psychological dimension. U-boat commanders are trained to listen for high-speed propeller noise, the signature of an imminent depth charge run. Walker's 4-knot approach generates almost no sound. Submarines remain stationary, conserving battery power, unaware that death approaches silently overhead. When charges detonate at 50 feet, directly in the U-boat's operational depth zone, hulls collapse before crews can react. Walker refines the technique continuously. He develops the hold-down tactic, sustained attacks that force submarines to remain submerged for 18 to 24 hours, draining their batteries until they must surface into waiting guns. He pioneers night surface attacks using radar, catching U-boats while they recharge batteries on the surface. His innovation becomes doctrine by mid-1943. The Admiralty formally adopts Walker's methods across the entire escort fleet, reprinting tactical manuals with his techniques as standard procedure. In April 1943, Walker receives promotion to captain and command of the newly formed 2nd Support Group aboard HMS Starling, a modified Black Swan-class sloop. Unlike convoy escorts tied to specific merchant formations, support groups operate as hunter-killer flotillas, roaming freely to engage U-boat concentrations. Walker finally has the freedom to prosecute submarine warfare without the constraint of protecting slow-moving cargo ships. His first patrol in June 1943 demonstrates the matured effectiveness of his methods. On June 2nd, Walker's group detects U-202, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Günther Poser, northwest of Cape Ortegal. The engagement lasts 8 hours, Walker methodically executing hold-down attacks, forcing U-202 deeper and deeper until battery exhaustion eliminates escape options. When Poser surfaces attempting to flee, HMS Starling's guns tear the submarine apart. 18 survivors are pulled from the water. 46 others die. 3 weeks later, June 24th, Walker engages 3 U-boats simultaneously in the Bay of Biscay. U-119, commanded by Horst Tessen von Kameka, surfaces during a creeping attack at 03:40 hours. HMS Starling's first depth charge pattern detonates directly beneath the hull, breaking the submarine's back. She sinks in 90 seconds. No survivors. Later that afternoon, U-449 attempts to escape on the surface at maximum speed. Walker's group pursues for 6 hours before catching the submarine. Depth charges and gunfire send her down. 3 survivors out of 50 crew. The 2nd Support Group's scoreboard climbs. U-264 destroyed July 19th. U-504 sunk November 6th. U-842 killed the same day. Each engagement follows Walker's methodology: patient positioning, silent approaches, precise depth settings, coordinated attacks. The German submarine service begins calling the western approaches Walker's Sea, a zone of dread, where U-boats vanish without warning. On January 29, 1944, Walker's 2nd Support Group departs Liverpool for what will become the most devastating anti-submarine patrol in naval history. Over 26 days, Walker's 5 sloops systematically dismantle a U-boat wolf pack operating southwest of Ireland, sinking 6 submarines in rapid succession. U-592, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Karl Borm, dies first on January 31st. Walker's group detects her at 14:20 hours, executes a textbook creeping attack, and sends her to the bottom in 14 minutes. 47 men lost. 9 days later, February 9th, Walker engages 3 U-boats in a single day. U-762 surfaces during a hold-down attack at wait 15 hours. Gunfire and depth charges sink her within 30 minutes. That afternoon, U-238, commanded by Horst Hepp, attempts to escape at deep depth. Walker maintains contact for 11 hours, methodically depleting the submarine's battery with 72 depth charges. When U-238 finally surfaces at 1940 hours, she's too damaged to dive again. HMS Starling's guns finish the job. 13 survivors, 36 dead. Later that night, HMS Woodpecker detects U-734 attempting to slip through the formation. Another creeping attack. Another kill. The relentless pace continues. U-264 destroyed February 19th. U-271 sunk February 28th. By the time Second Support Group returns to Liverpool on February 25th, they've achieved the impossible. 6 U-boat kills in a single patrol, a record that will never be broken. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in the untold stories of military innovation that changed history. We release new documentaries like this every week, covering the mavericks, the overlooked heroes, and the forbidden tactics that won wars. Subscribing ensures you never miss these stories, and more importantly, it helps us justify the research time these deep dives require. Hit that subscribe button now. It takes 2 seconds and means everything to this channel. Now let's talk about how Walker's enemies reacted. German naval intelligence recognizes Walker's name by autumn 1943. Interrogations of captured British sailors reveal his tactics. U-boat command issues specific warnings. Enemy escort group commanded by Captain Walker employs non-standard attack procedures. Expect silent approaches and shallow depth charges. Do not remain stationary when under attack. But knowing Walker's methods and countering them prove entirely different challenges. U-boats cannot dive deeper without exhausting batteries faster. They cannot surface without exposing themselves to gunfire. Walker has created a tactical trap with no escape route. The statistical impact is undeniable. May 1943, the month historians call Black May, sees 41 U-boats destroyed, forcing Admiral Dönitz to temporarily withdraw submarines from the North Atlantic. Walker's methods account for much of this success. By war's end, convoys employing Walker-inspired tactics achieve merchant ship survival rates exceeding 95% compared to 60% in 1941. Captain Lieutenant Peter Kremer, one of the few U-boat commanders to survive encounters with Walker's group, later writes, "We feared Walker more than we feared the entire British home fleet. The battleships could be avoided. Walker could not. He was everywhere, patient and deadly, waiting in the darkness." 20 U-boats destroyed, over 800 German submariners killed. An estimated 150,000 tons of Allied shipping saved through convoy protection. Thousands of merchant sailors who came home because Walker refused to accept doctrine that didn't work. The cost? One man's health. Burned away in obsessive dedication to perfecting the art of submarine killing. By June 1944, Walker's appearance alarms everyone around him. The robust 180-pound officer of 1941 has withered to 140 pounds, his uniform hanging loosely on a skeletal frame. He suffers recurring dizzy spells, refuses medical leave, survives on cigarettes and tea. His officers beg him to rest. Walker refuses. U-boats still threaten convoys, and he cannot abandon his post while men die at sea. His final patrol departs July 2, 1944. 5 days later, July 7th, Walker collapses on HMS Starling's bridge during a routine watch. The ship's surgeon diagnoses cerebral thrombosis, a massive stroke induced by physical and mental exhaustion. Walker is rushed to the Royal Naval Hospital at Seaforth, Liverpool. He never regains consciousness. Captain Frederic John Walker dies at 0120 hours, July 9, 1944, age 48. The official cause of death, cerebral thrombosis attributed to overwork and exhaustion. The real cause, Walker literally worked himself to death hunting U-boats. July 11, 1944, Liverpool Cathedral overflows with 1,000 mourners, sailors, merchant captains, factory workers, housewives whose husbands Walker's convoy protection brought home safely. Admiral Sir Max Horton delivers the eulogy. The Navy has lost its greatest anti-submarine warfare commander. Britain has lost one of her finest defenders. Hundreds of men who will never know his name are alive today because Frederic Walker refused to accept defeat. Walker's coffin is transported aboard HMS Hesperus to a position in the western approaches, the hunting ground where he destroyed 20 U-boats. His body is committed to the Atlantic at coordinates 56 degrees north, 10 degrees west, the same waters where so many merchant sailors died, and where Walker's forbidden tactics saved so many others. Walker personally commanded operations that destroyed 20 U-boats, more than any other Allied commander during the Battle of the Atlantic. His tactical innovations, adopted Navy-wide after mid-1943, contributed to an additional 87 confirmed U-boat kills. The creeping attack and shallow depth charge settings became standard doctrine, reprinted in tactical manuals that remained in use through the Cold War. Between May 1943 and May 1945, German U-boat losses climbed to 600 submarines, destroyed out of 1,200 commissioned. Merchant ship loss rates plummeted from 25% in 1941 to under 1% by 1944. Walker's methods formed the tactical foundation of this reversal. Today, the guided torpedo has replaced the depth charge, but Walker's fundamental principles endure in anti-submarine warfare. Maintain continuous contact, approach silently, coordinate multi-platform attacks, strike decisively at optimal depth. Naval academies worldwide teach case studies of Walker's campaigns. His bust stands at the Royal Navy Submarine Museum, placed ironically among the submarines he hunted so effectively. Walker refused personal publicity during his lifetime, giving only one newspaper interview, despite his celebrity status. When merchant captains thanked him for bringing their convoys through safely, Walker reportedly replied, "I'm just doing my job. The real heroes are the men who sail those ships knowing what waits in the water." A lieutenant who served under Walker during the HG-76 convoy later wrote, 32 ships in that convoy. Because of Captain Walker's forbidden tactics, 29 reached port. That's 91 families who got their sons and fathers back. Walker saved them by breaking the rules the Admiralty said couldn't be broken. The memorial inscription at Liverpool Cathedral reads simply, Captain F.J. Walker, CBDSO. He sank 20 U-boats. But more importantly, he brought convoys home. The lesson resonates across 8 decades. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one across the battlefield. Sometimes it's the doctrine that insists the old way is the only way, even when the old way is killing people. Walker understood that real courage isn't just facing the enemy. It's facing your own side and saying, there's a better way, even when they threaten to destroy you for suggesting it. He was right. The forbidden modification worked, and thousands of sailors came home because one stubborn commander refused to let doctrine write their death sentences.